and share, and great to have you with us. And first off, are you okay? We had Are You Okay Day yesterday, and it's a really important thing to connect with everyone in your circles and just see if everyone's doing okay. We feel for all the Victorians at the moment who are probably feeling it a little bit worse than us, but in saying that, we've been through some health issue ourselves. So please just reach out and make sure everyone has that opportunity to just talk and make sure that they can connect with people that can share what they're going through and just have some empathy towards what they're doing. And if they need some assistance, reach out and see if they can take that next step to getting that help that they need. So, and may I say warami, which is welcome in Darug language, and pay my respects to all elders past, present, future and emerging on the lands that we meet today and we care and love for with the activities that we provide our sector. So I've got a really big jam-packed session, and I've just noticed that we've got some new people to our forum today as well. So welcome, guys. It's great to have you on board. And for those that listen to this every week, I apologise. But I will just reiterate that I'm Laurie Mode. I'm the CEO of Outdoors New South Wales and ACT. And I have Leslie on the line too, who is my right-hand man, and I couldn't do anything that I do without her. And also I couldn't do what I'm doing without you, the members. So as a not-for-profit entity, we believe and we are committed to enriching communities by connecting them with nature so that they can lead more fulfilled and enriched lives. We have a whole lot of members that are part of us, and you can see on the screen there, they make up varying degrees of different sectors of the outdoors, as well as different requirements from us. So you can see that by having a network as large as we do, that we look at advocation, we look at marketing, we look at capacity building, we look at information share, and anything that really builds capacity in the sector to do what you do best, and hopefully achieving that goal that we have, which is to lead more fulfilled and healthier lives in our community. Just a reminder to everyone too, you probably have seen I've been promoting our YouTube channel, and that's something that we're going to use more and more, and we're filtering all of our videos in through this channel. It will be embedded on our website very soon, but it's important to subscribe, because as things go up, you'll get notified of certain things, whether it be media attention or announcements or other video content. So if you wouldn't mind jumping onto YouTube and making sure you subscribe, that way you won't miss out, and the tool that we're going to be using a lot more becomes part of the communications that we deliver to you, our members and partners. Okay, here's today's agenda, and as I say, it's pretty jam-packed, so I'll do a quick week in the review as quickly as I can. And then we have Dot and Nathan, who joined us today, and they're from Canberra University. You may remember a couple of months ago they joined us, or actually Dot joined us and told us about the research she was doing, and hopefully you all contributed to that by way of the survey that she was promoting at the time. So today she's going to give you the data and the results of that. Then we'll talk about quals, our education sector, our training that we need for our leaders, our guides. We want to go into a little bit of a conversation around that, and I'll explain more on that soon. The last part of the session is really a bit of an information share, but a knowledge gathering exercise on different things that have come out in light of what we've been through with COVID about our sector. I suppose there's sort of little cracks that we can see in the sector, that this is an opportunity that we can learn from, and learn from COVID and what it's presented to us, and try to fill those cracks or rebuild those walls to make sure that we have a more sustainable sector and a more enriched sector after this case of COVID, and obviously identifying some of these issues. So we'll go a little bit into pricing, we'll go a bit into structure, and you know, what should we be aiming for in our profit margins, etc. And then any other opportunities or discussion items as you need. So if you want to hang around afterwards, like always, please do. If you want a one-on-one or a one-on-few session, you are more than welcome to do so. So week in review, and here's your first QR code for the sessions. People know me as a QR queen in other circles, so this is my first one to our outdoors sector. But if you're interested in Mind Hive, and I put that up there because 2 areas have come up in Mind Hive this week, and I thought it might be a good idea if you are interested in either one of those, or just topics in general. Mind Hive is becoming a bit of a have your say platform and getting a lot of notice in the state government particularly. And so we've actually jumped on there and done some discussions around the camps and resuming of camps. So Mind Hive gets people interacting with that topic, and they put their thoughts forward, and it gives us a tool to analyse those thoughts and get a response at the other edge that makes case for content. And you'll see at the bottom there, it's the Small Business Commissioner's Office is also using Mind Hive, because you remember that they were doing the insurance inquiry and the survey. That is now closed. So their next step in their procedure is to have discussions on Mind Hive and get a bit of engagement through that platform as the second stage of their inquiry. This week we had our first meeting with our risk management and incident response group. So you might recall I did a call out for anyone interested in being part of an incident response group. That was in response to our media training, where we identified that it would be great to have a network that could support the sector in the case that there would be an incident or a COVID case or something that's happened in our network and they needed support. They may not have support from owners or direct managers within the location, so they could reach out to us and gain a little bit of that feedback or support, or someone standing beside them is often what they need at that time. So we had our group come together this week. They've also identified that risk management is something that they would like to look into and keep an eye on for platforms, frameworks, tools that we can deliver to the sector. So this is a great outcome for you as members of Outdoors New South Wales and ACT, because this network will keep an eye on different modules or different tools for you that you can use in your risk management settings and procedures. This week, the Chief Minister of ACT announced that there was a group being formed called the Canberra Economic Recovery Action Group. Applications open for that this week, and if anyone is certainly interested in the economic development recovery of Canberra, I'd urge you to jump on that and let's see if we can get some outdoor representation on that. I put an application in, you never know, but yeah, if anyone is interested in that, I strongly urge you to jump in and put an application in to get our sector recognised in that economic recovery. TAFE, and this brings me to the next the topic after DOT, but just to let you know, I've had some heavy discussions with TAFE this week, and a lady by the name of Nerida, who I had a very great conversation with, unfortunately also let me know that Certificate 4 would not be run by TAFE New South Wales in 2021. Some of you alerted me to that as well via email, and I thank you for that as you found out about it. We are already on the bandwagon to make sure that we can either fulfill that gap or bring that back into the thought for TAFE. We think it's quite detrimental for the sector if we don't have TAFE representing that particular qual. But I won't go into too much detail with that or set a framework for that. I want you to feed back to me in the session later about what the importance is of the quals and what do you see them of value. Is it important to keep Cert 4 or is it not? Is it more important to keep Cert 2, Cert 3, a diploma, whatever? But let's discuss that later on in the session. And we also had the ACARA curriculum review start. So our first meeting was this week. That is a process which goes through every couple of years. And it's great to have a seat at the table for the PDHP modules in that curriculum review. And some great offers for you guys as members. You might recall last week we had Action Coach do a little bit on the marketing, and they heard the pain that we're going through and the challenges we're going through. So they've actually offered a free session to anyone that wishes to take it up. It's valued at $439. So if you want to take up that free strategy session, they're more than happy to work one-on-one with you and just frame your strategy for you coming out of this epidemic. So if you want to take that up, please email Leslie and she'll definitely connect you with Michael and co. And the second one there is infection control training. So there's a free 3-hour session, qualified national training course on infection control. So there's 3 dates there. If you're available, lock yourself in for this opportunity with 5 Star Consulting. Again, just email Leslie and she'll connect you with them. Or it'll be on the members newsletter, which will go out today. If you can't make those dates and still really keen, let us know and we can work with them about setting some alternate dates and alternate locations. So that's pretty much the week in review. If everyone's scanned that now, I'm going to jump over and go into today's discussion. So I'm going to hand over to Dot now to take us through where she got up to.
Alrighty, thank you, Laurie. Yeah, so let me just share my screen. Oops, in the wrong window. Still not great with this. Share screen. Yes, so for those who may remember, or not, I'm aware not everyone would have necessarily come across the survey that we were conducting, but we were looking at the impact of the whole survey was 3 events, so bushfires, COVID-19 and climate change on the outdoor industry in Australia as a whole. And that was a survey conducted in collaboration with Outdoors New South Wales, ACT, and all the other guys at the bottom of the screen here, looking at the effect on the industry as a whole. Online survey looking at impacts of each of those events, recovery for the industry, and also what the future might look like for the industry as we move into the new normal, as they say. And that was looking at organisations, individuals, and also individual employees, and also interested others. So that was people who weren't employed by the sector, but maybe previously involved or had a recreational interest or anything like that. So the survey conducted throughout July. And in terms of what was sort of happening in the industry or in Australia at that time, because obviously it was a little while ago and everything's changed quite significantly since then. So the losses of employment and hours that had happened a little bit earlier in the year had steadied to a degree. Australians as a whole were a little bit less pessimistic about job insecurity in May, so just before the survey was conducted, than they had been previously. And then sort of as the survey was happening and now looking towards the current time, businesses were expecting a lower monthly revenue and job loss, and that was expected to continue in September. Having said that, we are very aware that the Australian outdoor industry is both very small and not subject to the same relaxation of restrictions that a lot of businesses in general have been. So that was the context. However, the Australian outdoor industry is not quite the same sort of thing. And also just bearing in mind that the responses we had, because they were conducted in July, people were a little bit more optimistic maybe than things have turned out at the moment. So the responses do reflect that to a degree, and we do appreciate that things are not quite the way that people were hoping and expecting to a degree it to be by the time we got to this point. Having said that, I do really want to thank firstly New South Wales, Outdoors New South Wales, ACT, in particular Laurie, for really helping us to push the survey and get all the responses we did, and also the other organisations that helped out, because that was a really, really important part, and we did notice the impact of every time that had been plugged. And also thanks to everyone who took part, who shared it. We really appreciate all your responses as well, because that's really helped us get some decent data for the local sector, but also across Australia. I'm now just going to hand over to Nathan to talk about the responses for organisations. Nathan has joined us a little bit later in the piece as a third year University of Canberra student looking at some of the broader data. And then I'll be talking a little bit about the responses that we got from employees. So thank you, Nathan.
Thank you very much, Dot. Hey, I'm Nathan, as Dot said, and I'm a research assistant for this study. Before I started, I just kind of wanted to start with something that, although anecdotal, I think is an accurate representation of the current COVID-19 pandemic and the important role that the outdoors can really play in improving mental health. So when the COVID-19 restrictions started here in Canberra, I, like many others, continued to try and work in whatever capacity I could, as well as kind of adjusting to the life of a hermit. After some times when the restrictions were eased, the first thing myself and my group of friends wanted to do collectively wasn't to go to the mall, it wasn't to go see a movie. We just wanted to go outside, so we did. We went to Lowell's Flat just for a day trip. Now back to the survey. As you can see, of the 58 outdoor sectors who responded to the survey, almost 1/3 of them operated in either New South Wales or ACT. So good job, everyone, for responding. And as you can see from the graph, the main focus was outdoor education, followed by adventure ecotourism, and then followed out with outdoor recreation slash events and competitions. And then the other category you can see on the far right included multiple foci, including tertiary education, as well as training and consultancy. Next slide, please, Dot. So the impact of organisations they've suffered due to COVID-19 in ACT / New South Wales has been shown to be significant. In the first graph on the left, you can see that a vast majority of organisations had suffered a major negative impact on their industry, with all of the organisations reporting either a moderate or major negative impact. This result highlights the potential need for additional support to outdoor organisations within the New South Wales / ACT. Because of the mental fatigue and the negative impact COVID-19 has had, it can't be really understated, and it shares a relationship with work stresses. ABS actually very recently just released a survey, the Household Impacts of COVID-19 survey, and they reported that 41% of Australians surveyed at some time had felt like everything they were doing was an effort. And that's really, I guess, indicative of the current situation. Numerous organisations highlighted the need for promotion of outdoor education-related operations to recover from COVID-19, with some suggestions including running additional advertising campaigns to support some of the small organisations, and as well as the need for additional funding to help rebuild and also help support the re-release of outdoor education opportunities, and to provide safe alternative outdoor education opportunities when available. Now on the right, no, not next slide.
Sorry.
No, all good. When the organisations were asked what was the most significant impact on COVID-19 during the outdoor organisation operations, 2/3, so 66%, pointed to a reduction in cash flow / turnover. This data further highlights the financial strain that outdoor organisations are currently under, and really, the need for additional support needs to be given. Continuing on, Dot, next slide, please. So these two slides look at the employee hours lost as well as revenue lost. The graph on the left is a breakdown with organisations being asked to estimate the percentage of employee hours lost due to COVID-19 in the first half of 2020. On average, there was a loss of 68% of regular employee hours, and 80% of the organisations reported that the loss was greater than 50%. Again, this result highlights the important role that JobKeeper may play in maintaining employees' financial well-being. Less hours for employees to work ultimately means less pay, and JobKeeper may help to mitigate some of the financial strain that both organisations and individual employees are suffering. Furthering on from this graph, the one on the right highlights the specific outdoor organisations' revenue lost, with an estimated 58% revenue lost compared to their expectations, and 13% of the organisations, so almost 3/4, reported losses of greater than 50% in the first half of 2020. Next slide, please, Dot. As discussed, the necessity of JobKeeper is really evident. Of all the organisations within New South Wales / AC2 who did respond to this survey, 13 of them needed to apply for JobKeeper. The service has been shown to be of great importance to respondents, with some of them making comments about JobKeeper, including how incredibly helpful it was, and that without it, they would have had to make hundreds of staff redundant. And also how it's given them the opportunity to keep in contact with staff so that they can liaise with them, so that when resumption occurs, that some of those staff can return and come back to their jobs. That's all for me. Thank you for listening. I'm going to pass you back to Dot now.
Alrighty, cheers, Nathan. So in terms of looking at the impacts on employees, just a bit of a demographics for the employees that we had responding. Most, again, were outdoor editors, so really strong response from them. But in terms of the base of employment, almost 3/4 were full-timers. And then the majority of those were also, majority of employees were also in the field, which isn't really that surprising given the industry. But we did also manage to get a little bit more of a voice heard from managers and coordinators, executive directors, which was really great to get a bit more of that broad scope, because a lot of the surveys of the industry, as a number of you will be aware, do just look at the impacts or the perspectives of instructors. So it was really great to get a little bit of a broader scope there. In terms of the impact of COVID, almost all but one of the employees stated that COVID had a negative impact on their work, and 79% of employees stated the impact was major. So the most significant, on a scale of 1 to 5, the most significant impact that it could possibly be, they said that had been the case for them. In terms of the different impacts or changes to employment conditions, this was a collapse question from both bushfires and COVID-19, looking at 57% of people had needed to obtain government support. So that was anything from JobKeeper and JobSeeker through to early release superannuation. So obviously a huge financial impact. Second largest there, changed in job duties, role and or location. Is also really significant, and then it sort of decreases in terms of work hours, moving into different fields, things like that. Employees that were reporting no change were largely academics and teachers, so a little bit more protection for those particular roles, but not all academics and teachers had experienced no changes. So it wasn't entirely that they were protected. And like I say, a huge impact across the whole industry. In terms of how people were feeling about moving back into operating, most employees felt they had a decent understanding of how to operate using COVID-19 requirements. And most employees were also confident that they could use these requirements to operate safely. Not everyone had yet had training, bearing in mind this was July. So there was still some training to be rolled out, and we do recognise that. Of those who weren't so confident about implementing the safe COVID-19 operations, reservations were along the lines of how to still do things like abseiling and rock climbing when you need to be close for safety but still maintain social distancing. Things like maintaining distancing in tents, or what would be required for that, because that's obviously changing all the time. So those are the sort of things that people still had reservations about how to safely operate with COVID-19 requirements. In terms of looking into the future, this is sort of a condensed list of what people were saying they felt would be really good to help the industry recover, help Australia appreciate the industry a little bit more, and sort of make sure that Australia as a whole recovers in line with some of the things that the outdoor industry can offer. Really strong emphasis on building partnerships with others in the industry. Like Larry was saying a little bit earlier, it's a very busy space right now, and I know she's juggling a lot of different balls. So having a little bit more of a solid and united industry voice would really help, I'm sure, with her being able to coordinate things a little bit better, and also just getting a bigger voice of us out there, because we are obviously quite a small industry within Australia. So a more united voice was recognised by a lot of employees in their responses. Development of an industry award and union, again, helping a little bit with that. workshops on change management, which I thought was quite interesting in terms of the things that Laurie was talking about earlier as well. Really ties in quite well. And in terms of those greater links, again, national parks, external things that aren't necessarily considered so much in the outdoor industry, although they very much are, using that both to support outdoor industry employees who are maybe out of work, also supporting the learning of students if it's outdoor education, or of the broader public, so that people are able to really appreciate the impacts and the benefits of the outdoor industry, and really having that united voice in advertising and using both the revitalised public recognition and things like scientific studies of the benefits of the outdoors, and using them to sort of help us recover and move forward, hopefully into a more resilient and strong industry. And I'll just leave you with this quote that we had from one of our respondents, which I think really sums up what those in the industry really appreciate and aware of, and what we're trying to do as we move forward and recover in the Australian outdoor industry. Thank you.
Beautiful, Dot, and very well finished with that one. I totally agree, and certainly been a big part of what we've been saying to the media of late. So thank you, and thanks, Nathan, so much for your contribution as well and your involvement in this project. Look, I don't think it's anything that anyone hasn't sort of seen or heard or understand, and as Dot said, it's probably erring on the side of the conservative side now that we've experienced another probably couple of months of a downturn since then. But what it has done is provide me some data, and it's great when you're advocating for the sector and saying anecdotal qualitative responses, but this is the type of stuff that we need as a sector to really use. And I think, as Nathan said, showing that, you know, our reliance on things like JobKeeper, and that we need that support because of the downturn. It's all really important stuff. So, guys, thank you so much, and look forward to seeing the national approach as well at the OCA level, and continue working with you. If anyone's got any questions, shoot them in the chat, because Dot and Nathan will hang around for a bit, and they can certainly respond into the chat if that's okay, because we've got a lot going on. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is about the quals, and here's another QR code for you. This is a survey that I got hold of through the industry that responds to what's happening in the qual space. So if you wouldn't mind just scanning that and completing that for me, but as you do that, I need to understand from you guys, what is the importance of the quals? Do you use Cert 2, Cert 3, Cert 4, the diploma with the staff that you have? Do you do your own training? Talk to me about what's happening in your space, because I need to understand, is Cert 4 as important as I've heard from some of you to date, or is it really not worthy of being updated and pushing to keep this as a qual that TAFE New South Wales will run in 2021. And just to clarify, and thanks Viv for raising your point earlier, the qual's not going. Training Skills Point still has it, training.gov.au still has it as a qual, and other RTOs can run it. It's just that TAFE has decided that they will not run it from 2021. So if you wouldn't mind just speaking up and just a quick chat about that, so I can be educated from you guys on really where we stand in regards to outdoor recreation quals. Anyone want to give it a go?
From a Scout perspective, the Cert 4 in outdoor rec isn't necessarily required, but we do need Cert 4 units to run activities for adult members.
Okay, great, and thanks, Stuart, because Scouts actually run the Cert 4 as an RTO, don't they?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so from your perspective, do you see it as an essential qual for what the outdoor sector needs, or is it just, as you say, the modules that are required and there's probably more of a flexible arrangement that could be made.
Probably the modules are probably more important. So I think people are more interested in getting the skills rather than getting the whole qualification.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Great feedback. Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in and just give me a bit of an insight into what they do?
Yeah, John
Hey,
here.
look.
Good morning. Look, go on, Brendan. Go for it.
Thanks, John. Hey, Laurie, Brendan here from Land's Edge. I guess from an outdoor ed perspective here in Australia, it's probably the most common qualification that we employ instructors with. It seems like a really achievable qualification for people to get not long after getting out of high school education and get into the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, fabulous. And Brendan, your guys, where have they done their cert for?
Most commonly, we'll see people coming out of the Blue Mountains, so Lithgow, as well as Wentworth Falls tapes.
Okay, so both tapes. Yep. You haven't used any private RTOs at all?
We have partnered up with, in recent years, the Lithgow tape to sort of help deliver aspects of it ourselves through a sort of a training package. But other than that, that's kind of the basis we see a lot of people coming from.
Okay, great. And just, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the Cert 3, is that not enough for what you need?
I suppose, yeah, the focus that we see in the difference between the Cert 3 and the Cert 4, the Cert 4 gives us a lot more confidence in individuals leading groups solo, as opposed to Cert 3. Not that it rules them out, but that it usually requires more life experience and sort of based on the individual, whether the Cert 3 is sufficient.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much, Brendan. John, great to have you here.
Morning, Laurie. Yeah, got to agree with Brendan there. The Cert 4 qualification is needed. Full stop, end of that one. Cert 3 as well, it has its place. As Brendan said, the Cert 4 leaders are the ones that make the decisions and are the epitome of what a leader should be in the outdoors. Cert 3, as you said, probably don't have the life experience or activity experience to be able to be in charge of a group of people without supervision, and I mean through standard operating procedures or somebody at a higher level. So your Cert 3s have a place, most definitely, as long as they have direction and protocols to work to. Going back one step to the Cert 2s, they're participants and they're used generally as assistants, but they've got no autonomy and no responsibilities generally. So both those quals, the Cert 3, Cert 4 though, definitely needed. Do you want to talk about the diploma as well?
Yes, please.
Okay, diploma, as the discussion we had the other day, is not focused enough on the level that the diploma is aimed at, and that's generally managing adventure companies or campsites or whatever. We used to have 2 streams, one for management and one for high-level activities. But in one of the iterations of the training package, it got canned and it just went back to focusing on outdoor leadership and the recreation activities, and the management side of it got put away. So that's just something for the structure of the development of the training packages next time it goes around, I think. But your Cert 4 people, they're the leaders, they're the ones that have got the handle on what is going on around them. So I'd like to hear what other people's opinions are of that too.
That's great. Thank you so much, John. Would anyone else like to contribute to this discussion? It's really key that I get some backing of the industry on where we go with this.
Hey, Laurie, Paul from Camp Somerset.
Hi, Paul. How are you going?
Yeah, really, really well. Hey, probably something that's really relevant, agree with what John and Brendan said, but obviously a big part of the sector in New South Wales follows the group leadership model rather than activity leadership. And I think that certainly a lot of employment is looking for group leaders that can lead groups across a multiple activity program. And for that, the Cert 4 is absolutely the qualification that's relevant to that.
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful. Thank you. I'm really interested in Rob's comment and to yours, Paul. Rob, do you want to just talk to your issue with trying to attract RTOs? If you've got a microphone, I think you had a dodgy microphone last time.
No, I think I just have to push the right button. You can hear me?
I can now.
Well, I'm new to the sector, sort of, but I'm sort of trying to find out as much information as I can to, like I said in the little post there, is if we want to try and upskill, if we want to try and improve our outdoor activity and or tourism economy, we need people to and be involved in it. So I'm trying to work with TAFE and others, and as the question is, to get RTOs to come to this area, because if TAFE aren't going to do the Cert 4 course now, and it's a mix between full-time courses and online, but then you've got to have a component at the end of it. Really, we're sort of looking for a model where we can slowly train up local kids or people that have got some, outdoor interests, just locally here, rather than having to leave home. So I don't know what model that's called, but if there's ways and means of getting these little training sessions or mobile trainers and assessors that can come and stop for a week and have an intensive course, I don't know.
Yeah, no, good point. And I'm not too sure, Brendan, is that the sort of thing that you have? They're sort of based, obviously you're down away from Lithgow, so how does it work with you? Do you have a way home variety?
No, not exactly. I don't know if I was misleading there, but what most of the content is delivered sort of in a formal education process at Lithgow, and then individual providers can help provide in-field experience to sort of help along with that education. It's more of a partnership than an RTO.
So, yeah, right. So the education's still at Lithgow. Yeah.
Yeah,
John,
that's
are
right.
you aware of a flexible arrangement where we've got some travelling RTOs?
Yeah, I was keeping quiet on that, but us as a private RTO, Outdoor Training College, g'day Paul, g'day PC, g'day Graham, all you guys, and Jeff. We do our academic component of the course online, so it doesn't matter if our students are in Exmouth or Queensland or down the back of Canberra somewhere. If they've got access to the internet, they can do modules online. That's no big deal with that. And then within that, we throw training and assessment sessions, and we travel. We've just got back from Queensland recently. We're just so you guys know, the campsites are going crazy up there. They're working. Most of them are working in full tilt.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, great. We're getting there. We're getting there. So we deliver the online component of the course, quizzes, exams, all your learning guides, assignments, the whole shooting works. And we've got the capacity to do Zoom lessons with customers as well. And then we go to site, depending where it is. We try and get a bunch of people saying Southeast Queensland or Mid-North Coast, if that's any help. And at the moment, we can't get into Victoria, South Australia, and I'm not going back to Queensland because they won't let me. So that we're flexible enough to be able to service our students in the environment that they're going to be working in or something close to it.
Yep, beautiful. Rob, that might help. That may help you particularly. So, and I'm not too sure how many people are aware, but TAFE is now one TAFE. They sort of was not Mid-North Coast TAFE and Western New South Wales TAFE and all of that. Now they've come together as one. So they're assessing all quals as a total entity. So as much as this is something that they've announced on total, as I said, we're having discussions with them to see what arrangements we can have. But there are RTO providers out there that are doing the quals and doing them flexibly. And I think if there's a perfect win out of this, that we need to maintain Cert 4 in all areas, but be a lot more flexible about the approach that we can offer the sector. But if there's any varying degrees of that, please let me know, email me, pick up the phone, call me, whatever you feel like doing. it's important that I know. But please fill out that the form that Leslie's put in the chat there. You can either click on that or scan the QR code, and that will take you to a form that they've asked the industry to respond to. So if you could also do that for us. Jeff, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say something, is that I would say the sector has been flexible over the years quite well, and there is a lot of variety out there. It is just how we engage with it that makes the difference.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Thank you for that. And I think the challenge, as we all see it right now, is from a lot of discussions that I've had with you, is that only what we've estimated to be up to 12% of your employees are on JobKeeper. That is a very low number, which means that we've literally lost 88% of our employment. As we know, there's a lot of overseas people that cannot get back to be part of our sector. We've got a lot of people that were in our sector that have had to leave our sector because they're either freelancers, casuals, and couldn't get JobKeeper. So now they're on JobSeeker, or they've found other employment elsewhere, which leads me to the sector structure cracks, which obviously our structures of how we employ people have left us in quite a vulnerable position. Our challenge now is, as we get back to business, is that if we go straight back, full steam ahead, we've got a lot of qualifications or experience or expertise to make up with people that probably haven't been in our sector or been out of it for some time. So as you can see, this is one of the issues that we're certainly talking to key stakeholders on. So if you've got any input on it, I urge you to get in touch with us so we've got the content from you. But thank you for your contributions, everyone. So the second part that I wanted to talk about today is some of these cracks, and one of the cracks in particular is around understanding how we're all structured. And if I could just raise that, the one thing that it's come to my mind is risk management is what you do really, really well as activity providers, and what you do on a day-to-day. You know how to keep people safe in that environment. Where the risk management falls down in our sector is certainly in the areas of reputation and political mixes and market mix, employee structure pathways for our employees, and possibly rates of pay, which is why we're losing so many people out of the sector. So some of these things obviously are coming to light because of COVID, and we, as I said before, are trying to work out pathways where we can help inform, educate and repair with yourselves as sector members where we go into the future to prevent this from occurring again. I have on the line Casey, who Casey's from the Office of Sport, and Casey came to me with an interesting challenge that we have quite a few government-owned facilities in our midst, in our sector. And I don't know how many people are aware, but government has a commercial neutrality clause in their acts where they cannot be seen to be benefiting where commercial cannot sit on the same platform. So Casey, you there?
I am. How are you going?
Good, good. How many facilities have we got that are owned by the state government at the moment?
So at the moment, hopefully you can hear me okay. At the moment, we've got 10 sites across New South Wales. They all vary in terms of their environments. So we have coastal, river, alpine and bush locations. All very consistent offerings, but we run a range of different activities across those areas. So we could do everything between day programs through to 4-night residential bookings. We also have a broad range of inclusions with that comes along with catering, facilitated program activities. We also have sport and rec facilities that are available for booking and use by formal organised sporting groups. And then we host a broad range of things like conferences and so forth. So we are, a major operator. We own and operate those sites currently, and we're going through a huge amount of change, as is the industry, looking at the way in which we operate those facilities, how we book them, and then the really big important piece is structuring our pricing to make sure that we're, fair and transparent with the market, and really keen to make sure we nail down our pricing review to ensure that what we publish in the coming months is going to support the sector, not hinder it.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much. So I asked Casey to come on because there's certainly also one of the areas that we need to look at the peak body on how we work with the sector to provide, I suppose, the good practice guide to business, and to understand, you know, what you should be looking at as an ideal profit margin, what ideal structure could best suit the environment in which we work. Knowing that we've got government players, we've got a profit for purpose players who are in the not-for-profit space, and we have commercial entities. And it's incredibly important that we work together as a sector and not undermine each other, but also having government people, government facilities, that they are competitive neutral. So I'm going to put it out there that I wanted to ask everyone's thoughts on if they are willing to share, and we're talking about camp facilities now particularly, their sort of pricing, and you're more than welcome to share it with me, which will obviously keep confidential as far as we won't be distributing it anywhere, but what we will do is certainly share it with Casey to help him understand where he sits and where he needs to either raise his prices to be at the same level as yourself, so that they are not benefiting as a business that is run by the government. Does that make sense? Really, I'm hoping I'm getting nods. A lot of people haven't got their cameras on, but I really would like to offer that to everyone to share. And any camp providers on the line, please feel free to speak up, because I think this is a really key process that we should go through every now and again to make sure that we are, one, collaborating, but also that we have the structure right in this way. And just any feedback on where you're sitting from a structure challenge perspective, a profit margin perspective. Obviously, at the moment when we're not operating, profit margins are non-existent. But in the past, you know, are you trying to aim for that ideal? From what I understand, this sector should aim for a 25% profit or profit for purpose area. So if you're not on that, I'd love to hear from you as to where you see the challenges and why. And two, if you're willing to share your prices with us so that we can work with Casey to make sure that they're competitive neutral. Any comment? I'm just going to the chat, sorry.
Laurie, I can probably just quickly provide an overview of the legislative requirements we have to operate under. So our aim through our pricing review is that piece around full transparency. So we want to get to a point where we can openly publish all of our pricing at a component level and test that against the market. But competitive neutrality, so we fall under IPART, and they state that competitive neutrality is the principle that government should not or should compete with private business on an equal footing. So really that's the key opportunity here, is to open up the communication lines to ensure we've got that transparency over what the benchmark is, and then we can price accordingly. And we have a key principle as part of this review to get some cost recovery on our services, which really goes back into our budget to provide a broad range of programs, not just for the outdoor sector, but sport, recreation, improving physical activity across our communities. So there's, you know, we've got a lot of focus areas, but keen to really work with the sector to ensure that, you know, in the current climate, whatever we end up going with is supporting the sector, not a hindrance.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you, Casey. And I think some of you are aware of my history in local government. I've spoken to some of you about that, and the Local Government Act actually articulates similarly to the state government, but I think the local government do it a little bit better in the fact that they are open and transparent about everything before it's adopted into their budgets, and they must put it on public exhibition for 28 days for public comment. So, you know, this is the sort of thing that I was talking to Casey about, and that's exactly what they want to do, is to make sure that they're open and get industry feedback on, you know, where there are pricing and where they're not. Any camps that want to talk? Yep.
Sorry, Laurie. Cole Robinson.
Oh,
I'm
Cole.
also I'm also from the Office of Sport, and I'm actually on the board of Outdoors New South Wales as the rep for that part of the business. But just everything that Casey said, is where we want to go. I guess the other thing just to note in terms of more broadly around understanding the sector more for the Office of Sport's point of view is that we do have a broader responsibility than just operating in our sport and recreation centres, which is to not just not hinder the sector, but to actually help support its growth and its sustainability and its viability and so on. So the more that we can be involved, or the more data, the more information that we can get from the sector, the better the position we are to be able to do that. And that helps us in terms of our planning around where our facilities need to sit within that broader direction of the sector, and how that can go beyond just supporting a neutral position for us, but actually support growth throughout the sector. So just a bit of another incentive, I suppose, to get involved.
Yeah, wonderful. And thank you for that. What that did for me is trigger the importance of having the government as part of our sector, because I think something that we've noticed as an opportunity is to leverage some of the camps that exist within the government portfolio for the sector as a whole, and use that as a marketing platform. But it's actually really beneficial that we have to work together and make sure that we are on that equal playing field. I noticed Rob's just put a question in there, Casey or Cole. I don't know if you want to respond to that in the chat, just about your facilities. But while we do that, is there anyone that would be willing to certainly share their costs with us, so that we could look at a benchmark, if you like, for the sector to help the Office of Sport in doing their pricing review? Yep, I'm getting thumbs up on a few. Thank you. So is everyone comfortable if they just want to share it with myself, or would you like to go to Casey direct? I'm happy either way, but we can certainly collect it from them and help them.
Yeah, Laurie, I'll share some correspondence, like some info following this meeting that you can distribute to members. That'll have my details. So either way, we're happy that that information can come via you or directly to me, and that would be held in confidence, you can be assured. So the broader information around this review and the project will be outlined, as well as a bit of a broader overview of what we deliver as an operator in the industry.
Yeah, wonderful.
I think it could be useful information for Outdoors New South Wales to have in the background for other things as well. So going through you through Outdoors New South Wales might provide a second value for that information, rather than losing it just into government. Not that we do. Just as a comment, one of the way government camps might be able to run, or your sport and recreation camps, if they're going to run a pricing that's similar to commercial prices, there's going to be a profit margin involved. That profit margin could well be put aside to support the rest of the industry in research and lots of other things, so that there could be some funding, as happens in some other states, coming out of the running of government camps.
Yeah, great idea. Dave, Cole, did you want to, or Casey, want to respond to that? I don't know how your budgeting works in that area.
Well, I think traditionally, oh, sorry, Cole, do you want to go?
No, it's all right, you go. I'll go after you.
I was just sort of made that point in opening that we rely on a level of cost recovery, if not margins currently, because what we get in revenue through our budget is then used to support the broader sector, whether it's sport, active recreation, the outdoor education area. So it might be a really good discussion to have. I suppose what I'm saying is that we do that, but to formalise it and think about channels for members of Outdoor New South Wales, particularly during this difficult time, and how we support the rebuild process might be a really interesting thing to consider moving forward. So I take that on board. I've got a note. I'll note that down, and I'll take it to our executive group.
Great, thank you, Casey.
So, yeah, I guess, yeah, similar to that. And I think there's a few other issues around the structure and probably the locations of some of our facilities that, when we look at what the profit might be, and there's a few different considerations there around how that works. So just quickly, there's the question there about 4 facilities in Central Coast. The location of the Office of Sport facilities are basically historical. They've all come about from the old national fitness movement. In essence, they were facilities that were built before there were other operators, I suppose, in the sector, and I guess government made a decision to go down that path. So from a location point of view, there hasn't been any new facilities built for many, many years. I'm sure everyone's aware that there will be a new one to replace Moyuna Bay. That's more tied up in the replacement of the Moyuna Bay facility, as opposed to a broader decision to build new facilities and expand. And I'd suggest that adding more facilities, government-run facilities, might potentially be more hindrance to the sector than possibly is the case at the moment. And I will say that, even with the replacement of Moyuna Bay, we're working through at the moment what that centre will look like, because our facilities, need to remember, are more than now. Originally, they were pretty much outdoor education facilities, but they are more than that. And they provide, as Casey mentioned earlier, accessible facilities for a range of different purposes, mostly around sport and active recreation. So we've still got to be mindful of ensuring that the availability of that type of resource, that type of facility is maintained, and particularly where there might be gaps. And I note the point about the Crusaders one being built just down the road from Moyuna Bay, but as I say, we're working through what the new facility might look like. So there's looking at all the broader considerations about what a community accessible facility needs to look like.
Yeah, great. No, thank you. And I'm aware of like the elite sports programs that you're involved in, the Jindabyne one, for example, all of that type of thing too need to be considered.
Yeah.
Thank you. And guys, just to reiterate, as David alluded to, this sort of information certainly will help us inform on some of the other areas. And I know that there's a group on Facebook, I can't remember what they call themselves, Outdoor Union, looking at some of the things around awards and what we need for our employees going into the future. All of this is starting to formulate really what the sector should look like for the future, and this sort of content. And that's why we started Connected Shares, because, at the end of the day, we are one sector, and sharing of knowledge is not the power, it's the use of that knowledge is the power. So I encourage you to certainly share with us as much as you're willing to share, but encourage you to do so for the betterment of the sector going forward. On that note, I won't say any more on it, but I think it's an important discussion to have, and I wouldn't mind coming back to this sort of discussion again and again, but encourage everyone, if you're comfortable, pick up the phone, talk to me about some of those challenges in relation to those areas, and any concerns or any opportunities that you see as well. So thank you, Casey. Thank you, Colin, for coming on. And that's a great start to really trying to look at this area. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
No worries. Anytime. Friday, 10 o'clock. Okay, guys. Is there any other things that anyone wanted to raise or discuss as we navigate yet another week of trying to resume our camps in schools and try to battle some of the other challenges on our horizon. But as we've always said, the future is bright. We've just got to get to the future quicker. Any other thoughts or things anyone wants to raise? And look at that, it's about to turn over 11. So how's that for timing? Okay, guys, thank you again for joining us for another Friday. We'll load this up onto our YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next Friday. But don't forget, happy hour, 4 o'clock, if you can join us. We will be there, coffee, drink, or whatever anyone wants for a general chat. So if I don't see you at 4 o'clock, let's see you next week. Take care, everyone.